Hello and welcome. I am Ben the Best 5, and this is in fact my first ever Christmas special. Yes, so this is part of my efficient career contracts playthrough, I guess, because I'm deliberately building, efficient rockets on a career playthrough and either making them as cheap as possible or recovering as much of them as possible to make the overall cost of the mission very cheap. However, this mission we won't actually have a contract for because it's a bit, it's a bit silly, it's a bit ridiculous, it's a bit out there, but it's, Christmas themed. I in fact have a space station in low Kerbal orbit with some Kerbals on it from a contract because it requires a certain number of Kerbals on it, to pass the contract requirements, and they're getting a bit lonely because it's Christmas time and, they're stuck up on a boring space station. So, I figured I might as well send them a 28-ton Christmas tree and dock it to the space station as a module for them to all sit around and, do Christmas stuff, I guess. And here it is, the massively ridiculous rocket which will be used to send up the Christmas tree to the space station. Now, as you might be able to see on it, there are in fact parachutes on this booster, which means that this booster will be recovered. Now this booster here you can see is actually a continuation of my regular class of launchers, the C, D, M and N class rockets. However, this is in fact the G class, G for Giga, because it's in fact very big and, well, Giga, pretty big, gigabyte, that's, pretty file if it's a gigabyte, so, big rocket, yeah. Now the launch profile is going to be pretty similar to the launch profile of most other rockets, and this rocket is in fact really big, which means it needs some propellant left over in the booster stage to perform a slowdown burn, or else it smashes into, well, oblivion when it lands, which is really counterproductive when you're trying to cut down costs of missions. So yes, we've just hit our 45, and we're going to hold that for the rest of the burn of the first stage, so that we can clear the atmosphere and perform a recovery. And yeah, from here I'm just going to show you some sped up footage of what will be a fairly standard launch. Alright, we have confirmed that the upper stage is successfully in orbit, so now we can go ahead and switch to the booster stage and land it.
Alright, a side note, my vocals might sound a little bit different now because my audio file in fact got corrupted halfway through, so now it might sound a bit different for the rest of the video, just letting you know. So from here on in it's going to be a fairly standard recovery re-entry. So how it's going to work is it's just going to fall through the atmosphere and re-enter, and then just before it can deploy the parachutes it's going to perform a quick slowdown burn, which will allow it to perform the recovery. And yeah, from here on in I'm just going to show you some spare footage of a really big booster performing a fairly standard recovery. So here we are at the recovery screen, and as you can see, we've actually managed to recover 100,000 funds from the rocket by recovering that booster. Now that is a lot of funds, and it significantly cuts down launch costs, just because that's 2/5 of the entire cost of the rocket, which we've been able to recover, which we can then spend on a future launch. So here we are on the map screen, going to perform a docking and rendezvous with the station. Now just a quick disclaimer, this is in fact my second attempt, because the first time I attempted I in fact made a mistake and dropped below the atmosphere line, which resulted in us heading into a suborbital trajectory through the atmosphere, so I had to make some quick recoveries. And normally you would find an encounter just by moving your maneuver node along the orbit until you get one, just by making it so that the two orbits just kiss, and at that point, they'll be an intersect just by pulling around. However, I didn't have that luxury due to me only being able to make one more orbit before it would probably crash into the surface. So to account for that, I had to burn radial in and radial out to compensate for that, and move with the prograde burn I made in order to get an encounter within one orbit. However, this burn also had to correct the orbit itself so that the orbit was above the atmosphere line, and both these things had to happen with this burn. So this burn was quite complicated, and you can see me setting it up. And if you do end up in a similar situation, be sure to make sure that you do something similar to what I've done here. Now this is some slightly sped up footage of the burn being executed. The reason I'm speeding it up is just so at the end you can see that the maneuver node won't be perfect, which means our separation will be a bit off compared to our actual planned maneuver node. However, it's still nice and close. And so here I have now met up with the space station, and I'm performing a slowdown burn so that when the slowdown burn is successfully completed, the orbit of the space station and the module I'm sending to it will be practically the same, which means that they are now going to hover basically the same distance from each other and not move with respects to each other much, which is what means when their relative velocities are zero. So now I can perform a series of maneuvers towards the target, and then a series of movements away from the target, etc, 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 to get a nice and close intercept as close as possible. And then when it's nice and close, I'll in fact detach the payload, and then I can dock it to the station and successfully complete the mission, and give the Kerbal stuck on the station a Merry Christmas. From here on in, you'll just be seeing some sped footage of the getting an exact encounter. So here is now some sped up footage of the docking taking place. I will, spoiler alert, disclaimer, I had to open up the cheats menu to turn on infinite fuel, just because the thrust to weight ratio on those micropropellant thrusters I put on it it's ridiculously low, and I needed more power and stuff. Alright, now we finally have the massive, great big awkward Christmas tree module installed on the Christmas tree to give our space station Kerbals a very Merry Christmas, and to you, the viewer who is watching this either on Boxing Day or very late on Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, from Ben the Best 5. You can now enjoy some nice, cinematic views of my really cool space station orbiting Kerbin. And thanks for the views. They really mean a lot. Please do leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Comment if you feel like you have something you want to say. And thank you.